So the topic for today's panel discussion is investments growth leaders considering for today and beyond. And Malay Harsha, Marketing Director at CleverTap, will be moderating the panel discussion. Over to you, Malay.
Hi, folks. Lovely to have this esteemed panel with us. I think we've got a lot of industry leaders who are doing the most cutting edge stuff that is out there in terms of marketing, in terms of growth, in terms of retention, and a lot many other factors that few people get visibility to. As mentioned by Saloni, today's topic is investment growth leaders are considering as investments for today and tomorrow. The entire conversation will be broken down into a series of questions, which will rotate from panelist to panelist. If you have any questions as audience, I would request you to put it in the discussion box along with your name and the company that you work with. So when we read it out, you know your question is being answered. I'll now quickly start by introducing the various people that we have on the panel. And I'll start with Ankit Paul. Ankit Paul was formerly the country lead for UC Browser from the Alibaba Group. Ankit has been in the industry for over 14 years now and has worked and launched certain very big names in the market, such as Silverpush, Mobile 18, and has also donned as a hat as an entrepreneur for about 3 years before getting back into the corporate life. Welcome to the panel, Ankit. Next in is Dhruvil Jain. Dhruvil heads overall marketing at Shopclues. He has over 5+ years of experience in customer acquisition, retention, partnerships. Prior to Shopclues, he was working with brands such as Urban Company, Fab Hotels, and Shiprocket. Welcome, Dhruvil. Next in is Jasrita Dhir. Jasrita heads brand marketing and CSR for the Fortis Healthcare Group. In a career spanning over 2 decades, she has 15 years of experience in marketing and healthcare sector. That's a loaded experience bracket coming in. Welcome, Jasrita. Mahip Dwivedi is the next person I'm introducing. Mahip heads mobile marketing and SEO growth at Flipkart. He has over 12+ years of experience in digital marketing, user acquisition, SEO and SEO growth. Prior to Flipkart, he has worked with brands like Big Basket, Kotak, American Express, and some others. Welcome to the panel, Mahip. Next in, we have Vakul. Vakul Agarwal heads overall retention at Grofers. Prior to the current role, he was leading product and digital marketing at Grofers. He has been with Grofers from the very start and has grown the business 10x over the last 5 years. We should be anticipating some stories to come in through Vakul through our entire conversation here. Prior to Grofers, he was a consultant with McKinsey and the American Express. Welcome aboard, Vakul. I am Malay Harsh. I am VP Marketing for CleverTap. I have about 12 to 15 years of experience in the industry. Today will mostly be about what we can do by learning from these folks. Please feel free. This is an open conversation. Please point out your questions. We would try and answer them at the end of the session. Now, to quickly get on started with our panel discussion, I want to pose this question to all of you out here. And this is something that we've been hearing from the industry quite frequently. What are the core challenges and symptomatic unique consumer behaviors along with challenges that brands are observing during this new normal? The B2C scape in the new normal, what are the new realities and key challenges? And also, how are brands trying to address them? I think we'll start with Jasrita and then we will roll over. Jasrita, you're on mute. Jasrita, you are still on mute.
No,
in the interest of time, I will address this question to Mahip. In the meantime, Jasrita's audio would be fixed. Mahip?
Yes, I hope you guys can hear me.
Come again, Mahip? Mahip, would you
You can
like me
hear
to?
me, right? Sure. So I think, see, for the current trend, right, I think consumers are more habitual to online now. I think there was a trend where we were seeing, during COVID, where a lot of expectations were there that, how consumer behaviors will diminish over a period of time. But what we see now actually is consumer are more habitual in surfing online. Their habits have become even more dense in terms of how do they look at products, how do they shop products, and they are expecting the industries, right, to give them a wider option, right. If I can talk about only an e-commerce lens point of view, I think they expect we should give them wider variety of product. Faster shipping, right, will be a new delight to all of your new customers. They expect that the faster a company can deliver the product, the better, the feedback or the retention that you would see. However, all the e-commerce or any of the domains are trying to, address one challenging question is how do we retain these customers? And I think as and when we move on to the discussion, we will discuss more about it.
Awesome. Vakul, would you like to add to that?
Sure. So there are two fundamental differences that we have seen in our category. One is people are limiting the number of delivery entries to their home. Right? That could be because of the safety concerns, right? And hence what Mahip said, variety is what people are seeking. The second fundamental shift that we have seen is people are now more conscious of savings overall because of shrinking incomes that we see because of the entire COVID scenario. The brand positioning, at least that we had, wherein we promised to deliver best prices on groceries, that seems very relevant. Average basket size has gone up. That is to do with people again trying to limit the number of deliveries that they get to their home. So these are the two fundamental shifts that we have seen, and it has kept pace till now. We are not seeing any reduction in either the average order values or probably the number of items that people buy. It has gone almost 80% above pre-COVID times.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dhruvil, would you like to add to that?
Yeah. So I guess the one of the major shift which we have seen is like people are now more interested in different categories as they were we were selling before. Now there is a complete shift from maybe categories like fashion and more something which is more related to their daily needs. And like Vakul rightly mentioned, the customers are now more interested in the actual offering which they get. And there's a shift from the impulse buying behavior to more of you know decision making in terms of what they actually need. And the shift in the daily needs is really changing factor in the overall e-commerce industry. So unless you can satisfy the customer in terms of like what exactly he expects from that particular order or that particular delivery. Like for example, they would expect the product should if I order some daily needs like maybe groceries, for example in Grofers or Flipkart or Shopclues or anywhere, and the product is not up to the mark, you have lost that customer forever, because the experience is now very important, as compared to before where it was more of impulse driven, because the times have changed significantly, and now people want to place trust in the companies where they buy from and where they present themselves as a repeat customer, I would say.
Makes sense. Ankit, I would want you to add a little more nuances on user behaviors, maybe on the web itself or on the digital front itself, if you could add.
Sure. You guys can
Yeah.
hear me properly, right? Wonderful. So to add to it, I would actually add it from the brand perspective side. The overall mentality of users have changed in the past 6 months. I would say that feeling of economic insecurity has actually led to price sensitivity in the market. So people have started, actually the mentality of people have started more, it is more prevalent towards, you know, maintaining the overall lifestyle rather than gaining or growing the lifestyle right now. So in that case, the buying behavior of users have actually taken a huge shift. If I need to categorize it into three parts, I would say there is an anxiety level buying behavior, there is a caution led buying behavior, and then there is a comfort led buying behavior. Now, we as brands need to actually determine and understand as to how we can emphasize on these different levels of buying behavior and maintain that positivity of those consumers towards our brand. That is something what I would like to say.
Okay.
Can you hear me now, Malay?
Yes, finally. Jasrita, right in time.
Right in time. Just in time, like in healthcare. Okay, so maybe I'm repeating something because I'm sorry, because of this technical glitch. I might be repeating something what others said, but I'm going to talk about the McKinsey report, which got tabled in July 2020. It's as recent as it gets, which says that 91% consumers have changed their consumption patterns and their buying behavior during this pandemic. Okay, so that gives you the scale of impact that every brand is going to have already felt or is going to feel. So that's like my opening, sort of statement. Now, what are the kind of things that we have seen, through consumer behavior as students of, consumer behavior studies? There are more spends on essentials, and there are less spends which are happening on impulse purchase categories, your shoes, your luxury watches, and things like that, right? So, and also with salary cuts and less optimism on an economic revival anytime in the near future, so there is this, spending sort of less consumption and more spending sort of a pattern that all brands are bearing the brunt of, except, of course, for the essentials category, which has seen a rise, right? So that's the second thing. The third is that nearly half of the Indian consumers have shifted to more economical products. Okay. Now, when you said what are the challenges for the brands, this is the first challenge for a brand. If you've been operating in a luxury or a slightly scale sort of a category, because it's a loyalty shock for all brands, and a lot of that has happened on account of what we already spoke, the salary and the less economic revival, etc. The other is also that the supply chains were disrupted at the time of the pandemic. So what are you going to do? Are you not going to use a product? No, you'll shift to something which is more economical and is available, and therefore the trend that I see going forward, at least till the time that contagiousness around the disease is still a problem, is more local buying. Okay, so that is a trend that is going to stay, and that is, to reroute your supply chains and your logistical, whole structure in such a way to be able to produce local or provide local is something that a lot of brands in manufacturing and consumer side will definitely have to think about. Digital contactless services, such as, curbside pickup or contactless delivery and drive-through service, they are seeing much higher adoption rates, which I'm sure others would have spoken about also. And finally, there is a marked shift that I see in consumers through a do-it-yourself sort of a behavior. The rise in consumption of health and fitness apps, health and fitness content, all of this is like never before. This has brought, sort of whether it's on the Ayurveda side or it's on the holistic healing side or it's on the mental health side or it's on, the traditional medicine side, all of that to the fore. These are some of the sort of changes that I see in consumer behavior. I've already mentioned some of the challenges that loyalty, this shifting consumer behavior, establishing new supply chains and logistical routes, and for overall the brands to think, where do they fit in this new world order for the consumer? Where do they fit in this continuum? Okay, because the continuum and the balance has shifted is really a challenge for a brand. How some of the brands have responded to it.
To that, I have another question there.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go
ahead.
What are the kind of new mechanisms that are driving customer centricity in this engagement for the current landscape? If that's something, Vakul, you would want to address first, because you look at retention and hence engagement. You're on mute, Vakul.
It has to drive from the insight that we have. Right. The first insight was that the hygiene or the safety as a feature has become a expectation for consumers, right? It no longer can be the differentiation. Everyone expects a safe delivery, right, whenever they order from any of the portals, right? So that was one that we realized at the very start, right? And hence what we decided was we will at least deliver in a sealed packet so that we ensure that safety is taken care of. The second was the reliability of service. Whatever you promise to a consumer, you should deliver it. That becomes a very big differentiation. And the third and the last is because of shrinking incomes and job losses, the promise of better prices on your everyday needs has become most important at times like these. And luckily for us, that was a brand positioning from the very start.
Awesome.
To double down on that was really important for us. And that these three combined has led to better retention for us during these times.
Good. Mahip, would you like to add to this?
Sure. So I think what Vakul said has been a core part of I think most of the e-commerce related companies' journey. Making it safe and balancing the trust. Right. That's I think one of the core point. But I think apart from that, we have been enhancing is communicating well with the consumer at this point, because once you acquire these new customers, right, during pandemic or even post pandemic retention, right, I think it's very important that how are you communicating post you have acquired them. So our core strategy, or let's say most of the e-commerce would have been working on relevant cohorts to people what you are sending communication as, right? I think all those mass PMs, all those mass emailers, needs to have a very, very segmented or a sub-segmented way to reach to these each consumers in a way what they are actually shopping, and not just sending a random ones, right? Sending them offers and telling them new communication. For example, if there is a gaming launch which is happening at the platform, right, consumers should know that how do they use it. We also have a duty now to teach them how do they use it and make sure that they are coming back again and again, right? So more of these engagement programs will also help in retaining these customers. So these are like few of the things which I would like to add.
That I think is fairly contextual. Okay, now by the time it comes to Ankit, I have another nuance that has been added to it. So Ankit, from web behavior perspective, would you would you look at this question from a web behavior perspective again, but also try addressing, because this is a question that I have also had in my mind. Does that mean over communication isn't okay today? Over to you, Ankit.
So, over communication, you guys can hear me, right?
Yeah.
So over communication is not okay. It's not okay. Well, if I talk from web communication perspective, I totally understand that people are, or rather consumers are mainly hooked towards the internet media. They are, you know, leveraging the idea of watching the maximum of videos and maximum of, you know, browsing data. But then again, over communication actually led to it never leads to the advocacy of a brand. It actually leads to the dissatisfaction. That is something what I would say. On
Okay.
the other hand, as rightly stated by Vakul, I would actually add on to his points, or rather to Mahip's point, is the experience has actually, it's an empathy led experience which has actually been demanded by the consumers these days. You have to give top of the house customer service. You have to educate the customers in regards with what is best for them, rather what is needed by them. Earlier, it was a different way all around. We were pushing customers to buy things. Now it's the customer who is pushing us to give them things what they want. You have to engage with compassion. So you have to be very compassionate with customers. If at any point of time customers think that you are not, they would actually go to other brands, because everyone is, so in these days everyone is competing with each other, and everyone has to, and that competition would actually increase in the coming days, because customer being going more towards the online phase. Delayed response, obviously, not at all accepted these days. You need to be at the forefront on your foot and be ready for the market. And yes, you have to deliver what's promised, as rightly said by Vakul. The promise today keeps a lot of sense in the mind of the customer. They think that the brand which has delivered what has been promised is the best brand, and this would actually create advocacy in the long run for that brand. Yeah, that's from my side.
Thanks, Ankit. The next question that I have is, what's the new age approach to enhance the customer experience? And what's your organization doing to position itself uniquely towards the same? So this will probably be more contextual to your organization and various vertical. Am I audible? Awesome. Dhruvil, I would want to start with you on this.
Sure. So basically, I guess the segmented communication which has been there, it's really important, and more now all of the times, because there is not exactly, like everyone rightly mentioned, it's not impulse driven purchasing behavior nowadays. Now you have to, like for example, there is some particular needs which you have identified for the customer, and like this now would have to have a repeat purchase. So sending a push or a right email with the right content is really important. The right information is really important. So and there are chances are pretty high, if you retain a customer, you would retain them for long now, more than ever. Earlier, like customers, the e-commerce has seen a hop between the customers as well. The loyalty has been not that much great earlier, but now I guess it's really important. And I think the new age customers and the new customers which we have seen acquiring during the COVID times and the pandemic times, they are more than ever loyal, because if they like if they like the service, they like the delivery, they like the actual overall service which you provide, the value addition in their life is really, really important. So I get the communication will also play a great role there. And I guess making the right connect with the customer is more important. Like you cannot bombard them with multiple communications, advertisements, or anything sort of that. And increase the technology, or the logistics front more than ever, because the future coming times would be really dependent on them. The right segmentation is really important, the right customer is really important. There would be some bucketing along the customer front, where you would be targeting customers differently, and identifying the actual needs of the customers, while not bombarding them with multiple communication, but giving them the right service which they actually need. And I guess one more important thing I would like to mention here is, like the competition, or the maximum kind of reach which we were getting earlier has also seen a surge. There has been an increase in the overall threshold of the customers, or the maximum reach which we can get. So earlier, the times were majorly sale driven. You can see huge surge, a lot of customers mind during the Diwali sales or the festive sales, and people actually waiting for these sales. But the trend has now completely changed in form of, like it is not more of sale driven or discount driven, it is more of service driven and the promise driven. Like what exactly you promise and what exactly you deliver, the supply chain and the logistics, which are a major role player, because if you are able to deliver, like Vakul also really mentioned, like if you can deliver the right service and fulfill the overall promise, like someone from a tier 3 city or maybe a tier 4 city expecting the right service, which people can maybe were getting only in tier 1 cities. So that is also a major role player, I guess, post COVID times.
Thanks,
And
Dhruvil. I think that is a lot of anecdotal information that a lot of our listeners can really plug into and probably resonate with and probably learn from, more importantly. Mahip, I wanted to check with you, how is it that your categories are responding to this, and how are your businesses responding to this?
So I think if it is about, what's new that we are doing, I think we have seen a lot of shift in terms of how people were buying earlier and what people were buying earlier, right? And also in terms of visits on different kind of pages, also because of a habit. So one of the things which we started was OTT, right? And OTT is something which is not just a product, but it was maybe in need of an art to adding with how consumer actually want to see a product as. Now at that particular point of time, you need to also tell people very very proactively that what, the platform is not only for you to just come and shop, right? There is also an add-on services which you can do it. Maybe those services were earlier available, which I would say that maybe during pre-COVID scenarios, but it's a good time for you to again recall those things and tell people that where is the real value proposition, right? And see how is that picking up. For example, your own loyalty programs, which people may have not been using very actively, but if you try that now, right, or maybe rebundle it and again tell the people in a better way, these are few things which will actually bring differentiation of your platform versus others, because everybody is selling the same product, right? But the differentiations will only come when you actually adopt to what user is actually looking for, right? And another example of that would be maybe voice searches, or maybe OTT, or maybe introducing gamings every week, which make consumer more interested towards it. So I think these are the few things that I think we are trying and working out well for us.
I think I resonate very strongly with increasing the way your brand is perceived, and how you're increasing the gamut of experiences a user can have at a one-stop shop, for the lack of a better phrasing. I really appreciate that. I think that's a way a lot of businesses will be exploring, while at the same time, some businesses will also be exploring for a very certain and specific niche, where this is the only place where I want to hit at, and this is where I want to win at.
Yes.
There's no point taking a Flipkart head on.
Yeah.
True that. I think the next question is something that I would, that's very close to me. What are the tech-based solutions to supercharge marketing efforts that you are seeing take shape and are shaping the trends today? I'll start this question with Dhruvil. Sorry. If you would want to add to that.
Yeah, so basically,
keep it short, because in the interest of time, we are running out of time. So I want to cover everybody. Thank you.
Sure. So basically, I guess the tech solutions like the data layer creation and the using the data is really important. You have to collate the data from everywhere you can get, from the advertising channels, from your backend, from your customer behavior, the signals from the app or the M site, the behavior of different groups and buckets of the customers on M site or maybe your app, and collating the overall data, making a sense out of it, and reaching out to the customer in the best manner possible, giving them the right communication like previously also mentioned, and keep them like giving a personalized experience, I would say, to the customers. Like there cannot be one product for everyone, right? Every product or every maybe app experience would be perceived by a different customer in a different manner. So I guess using segmentations, pushes, emails, or whatever kind of personalized communication is there. Now WhatsApp is also a big role player here. So using that judiciously and intelligently.
Sure. Jasrita, this is a question that I wanted to point to you as well, because healthcare clearly is the need of the hour. What kind of tech solutions are you guys looking at? I hope your audio works this time. You're on mute. Awesome.
Yes. Okay.
We have you.
Yeah, great. So from clicking on a link to every action that a consumer is taking online today is immensely trackable and measurable, and therefore actionable, right? So there is this wealth of valuable insights that marketers are getting through these technology-based solutions, to better the consumer experience, right? Now, 2 or 3 that I can talk about is that, we are building more robust customer personas, because the consumption segment of healthcare is so vast, from a baby being born to terminally ill and everyone in between, both genders, all age group. You can imagine that the how many cohorts sort of emerge out of it. So we're building more robust customer personas beyond generic demographics by adding keyword search data to it. So that's one that has sort of worked for us in healthcare. The other is simple user behavior tracking tools, even something like a Google Analytics, what it tells you about time spent on your page or your bounce rate, etc., helps you in then improving your UI and your UX, right? Also with people living longer, and therefore with longevity of life, the quality of health coming down due to various factors like pollution and whatnot, predictive modeling software which mine existing customer data to identify whether it's cyclical patterns or trends, and then can inform decision making on future usage patterns or future diseases that people might have, to create some realistic future models, etc. These are three areas in which healthcare has been working. So all I have to say is that thanks to advanced analytics and behavior recording tools, understanding customer behavior has become much more easier today, and that really is the key for having a better targeted solutions for your customers.
Awesome. Vakul, I would want you to add a few more nuances here. So, because a lot of our listeners, Jasrita, Ankit, Mahip, and Dhruvil, are people who are probably trying to learn from you. So, if there are tool names that you want to drop, then that would also be very helpful for them.
I'll just outline the entire marketing structure that we have, right? So, a CDP is important for us because there are multiple partners that we have and we need to pass on events. So our customer data platform is really helpful. Then our MMP is required, which is your attribution tool, right? I think all of you guys would be using one. So that is required. A marketing analytics tool is really important, right? And the app analytics tool. And these are the basic things that at least we use at our end. I can name a few, right? For example, a CDP, M-particle and segment works really well. You can check them out and see what works best for you. In terms of app analytics and marketing automation, we are happy with CleverTap right now that we are using. There are other tools for app analytics, right? Mixpanel is a really good one that you can use. For marketing automation also, there are more Engage, WebEngage, etc. that you can venture into. Some people have made their own tools as well. Paytm is using probably their internal tool. But I think just to structure it, a CDP is required, a MMP is required, then an app analytics and a marketing automation. This is a basic necessity.
I think that was really, really helpful, Vakul. Folks, if you have any pointed questions that you want to point at, more probing responses that you seek, please feel free to write it in the Q&A and we'll try and answer whatever best is possible. Moving on to the next question. This is a question to Jasrita. What are your strategies with respect to creating engaging content for your mobile users?
So we know that, whether for any of the mobile users, for the mobile segment, what are some of the things that work? Okay, so we know that more video content works, right? Now, for the healthcare category, you have to make a judicious choice when you're producing that video content as to between the formats that you're using, your long format and your short formats, at an awareness stage of the funnel, more shorter formats, at a decision stage of the funnel or a consideration stage of the funnel, more long, format, etc., videos, etc. Within that also, if it's a patient testimonial where somebody is talking about their experience, which you're using at a consideration or decision stage, then obviously you'll need to have sound, you need to have music and things like that. But if it's an awareness stage of how to do virtual consults, then you have to make it language agnostic. We know that most users, browse through video content, all content, including video content, on muted mode. So you need to, be using subtitles and maybe keep it language agnostic and keep it, sound and whatever agnostic. So that's what has worked. Okay, doing A/B testing of our creatives, and then going ahead with the one which is getting better response, on mobile is something that we do all the time. Visuals and animation, especially when you are talking to younger audiences, for our mental health programs like school children, etc. So we use a lot of vectors, we use a lot of animation, and a lot of visuals, etc. for that. Also, I think, in content strategy, what's very important when it comes to healthcare is for it to be contextual and for it to be topical. So when there were most concerns about contagiousness, then, the most viral video that we've had in the history of healthcare is a robot that we had installed in a hospital in Banerghata Road in Bangalore. I think you guys would have also seen the bot which was screening people before going there, right? So I think alacrity of response of what you put out, even something which is amateurish, because when it comes to healthcare as a category, the more authentic the content, even if it's a little bit rough on the edges, has more acceptability than something which is very pristine, but therefore has a studied and a sort of a manufactured feel to it, right? So keeping it authentic, being contextual, being topical, giving people plasma therapy updates, giving people antibodies updates. Today, more and more information on vaccines that you can sort of put out. And certainly not tone-deaf communication, because this is a sensitive category. So I think these are some of the things that work for us.
All right. In the interest of time, now I'm going to ask 2 rapid-fire questions. Please take no more than 30 seconds to answer these 2. What are the new growth channels that are emerging today and are perceived as the channels of the future? Starting with you, Dhruvil.
The likes of TikTok and all the video apps which have come in place, they have been we've seen a boom in user growth and has been a haven for advertisers like us maybe. And the new age technologies like Alexa, Google Home, the new technologies which are creeping in, they would be a great place to be in, to develop and optimize advertising there.
Awesome. Ankit, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, so the voice and the video would capture the market in the digital front in the coming days. As said earlier, voice and videos would be big in the market. Other than that, yes, India will become the new data hub. The new data hub in regards with, as per the Government of India initiative, they want all the data to be stored in Indian market. I'm sure in the coming days, there are companies, the analytics companies and data companies which would emerge in Indian market to help each and every sector in the market to have their data stored in India. So it would be make in India for the global perspective. That will come in Indian market. I'm pretty sure about it.
Wow. Mahip?
Well, I think apart from the OTTs, gaming and the voice, right? I think 2 core areas. One is the AIs, which will not only help in enhancing customers' experience when they visit your product, right? I think it will actually is going to change a lot of things in terms of how do you also display your product to people better, right? While a lot of these habits are shifting. I think the another interesting thing which has come out is the influencer marketing, right? While this was always been used as branding, but because of all of these scenarios all around, I think we have seen that a lot of focus are also shifting towards trying out, right, more influencer marketing, more product led marketing, and I think this is going to stay maybe for a while.
Thanks. Vakul?
Most of the pointers are covered, but data and video for sure.
Jasrita?
Social media, analytics, and social listening, because online community building is going to become very important, number 1. With bottom of the funnel metrics assuming more importance, of full integration of marketing cloud with your CRM platforms. And third, voice and anything that is zero touch.
Wowza. I think we've got quite a bit of detailing there. Folks, if you are trying to build your marketing plan, this was a conversation you needed to listen to. Now, my final question, and this is something that we are trying to assess at our end. We have seen people looking for these kind of answers also. What are the core systems and areas where growth leaders are investing today and tomorrow? And by that, this conversation is largely centered around the MarTech stacks and what kind of stacks you're trying to build. So I'll start with Jasrita, and next I'll ask Ankit from there. Please.
Say, the Gartner study, which I'm sure all of us have seen, the CMO survey that has happened says that MarTech is now going to account for over 30% of the total marketing expense budget, for marketers world over. This is a global survey, so it's no different for India. And companies are starting to think about how to accelerate their digital transformation, roadmap and increase their adoption of the MarTech sort of solutions. So therefore, I don't think for us it is any different. So we both healthcare as a sector and Fortis as a brand is embarking on the same journey.
Thanks. Ankit?
Yeah. Taking forward from what Jasrita said, so I have a big answer to it.
Interest of time, please.
In regards with organizations, how can I and my organization contribute to the solution is something which every organization has to think now. What are the nuances which I need to cover up? What are the possibilities which I can give to my consumers is something what they have to cover up as a growth leader. The second point would be, is this the time to cut edges or is this the time for cutting? Because if you remember, even in 2008, when the similar kind of situation happened, obviously it was not pandemic. People who stayed actually thrived in the market, and people who actually were not cutting the edges thrived, but people who actually cut the edges fled from the market. So we actually have to think whether we are cutting our marketing budgets, because with the cutting of marketing budgets, the demand and the overall sales of the product also decreases, right? The third part which an organization or as a leader we need to think is how to lead, motivate, and enable. Yeah. Are you saying something, Malay?
No, I'm not. No, I'm
Okay. So how we have to motivate and enable our remote sales and revenue teams. Now, it's not only about the advertising part, it also comes from the marketing background as well. Why? Because at any point of time, everyone will be working from home. Keeping them motivated, keeping them enthusiastic about their work is very, very big task for an organization to do. And that is something which we need to look at. The fourth
Thanks.
part would be, where will the customer engagement come from? So we have to look at channels from where we can actually, we talked about marketing on all aspects. The biggest aspect right now for every marketer is giving the customer an experience of buying. Experiential marketing is the keyword which would actually benefit each and every one of us in the near future, because that will help us in making advocacy as one of the prominent demands from the customer which would come. And yes,
Right.
the final one is, how quickly can we develop and scale digital selling channels? Obviously, we would educate the customer, but at the end of the day, everyone needs sales to retain their companies, to retain their positions. So I think these are some of the points which as a growth leaders we actually have to look at, or organizations have to look at.
Yeah. Mahip, quickly, could you try capturing
Yeah,
your
so I
thoughts there?
think Ankit has covered most of the areas, but one of the important things I think which we should look at it is joining your customer journey, right? I think we all work in silos in terms of different marketing activities, but if it is about looking at next 1 year, I think we need to look at where the investments are going, and it may shrink a little bit. It asks for giving you more efficiencies in terms of acquisition, in terms of engagement, in terms of getting a better buck for money, right? Now, I think the core thing would be that are we able to identify this user in their journey at a more level, and are we able to bridge these points, right? So, what I'm actually talking about is touch points. If we are able to build these touch points, we'll be able to attribute, data better, and I think that is the area which I think needs very much focus and also investment.
So
Thanks.
I would add just one more point to it, which is the last question which you asked, Malay, and the second question which you asked in regards with what is important for a growth leader to get customers on board. So empathy led human experience is something I'm sure what Mahip is talking about. Getting the best of customer service, educating the client, and closing the funnel. So it actually works on IDA model, wherein you create an action and then you convert that at the end to advocacy. It's as simple as that, and I'm sure Jasrita would agree on that.
Yes, I do. Completely.
Vakul and Vakul, if you could quickly capture your thoughts on that.
The only one thing that is very important for us in the current scenario is how best we can use data and then use it to either give a personalized experience or be more contextualized towards the consumer. Right? How best we can create multiple segments. There are a few segments that we've already created, but how do we go narrow to a one-on-one personalization front. Have a different storefront for every user in that case.
I think with this, we've kind of come to the conclusion of this panel. Hopefully, you've had as good a time as I had learning from you guys. A lot of questions have come in here. To summarize this panel, one thing that I would like to tell all of our audiences, basis what I've learned today. Empathy is number one. Experience is number one. Over communicating is not acceptable, contrary to some perceptions out there. User persona and journeys are important. Identifying and completing your stack from top to bottom. And like Jasrita pointed out, it could be as stark as giving birth and eventually terminally ill, and the multiple cohorts that find their way in between. That is the entire journey for, I would call it anecdotal, that reference from birth to terminally ill. That's the entire journey of a marketer. And the journey through which various stages in which business goes through. I think this has been very helpful. The tech stacks that Vakul talked about, the way that needs to be structured, I think that's a very beautiful insight for marketers out there to take in. Before we close in on this session, I have a few questions that have come up in the Q&A that I would want to point out to you guys. Please take about 2 minutes and no more. Otherwise, I'll not be able to put in more questions. The first question is for you, Jasrita. This is from Sachin Trivedi. Will it be possible for Jasrita to elaborate on building robust customer personas? Adding keywords is one point she mentioned. What else can we do to improve customer personas?
So I think, yeah, thank you. It's a very good question. Okay, so two things that I can quickly talk about because I think we need to also get to other questions. In addition to adding keyword data, two other things that you can do is rely on consumer research. Okay, so we build our persona basis whatever, but then you have to test it with consumer research to say that whether the personas that you've built are robust, are true or not. That's number one that you can do. The other thing that you can do, is also social listening and focus group discussions to see that how many people resonate with it. What will consumer research do? The qualitative part of it will tell you the what. And the quantitative part of the research will say how many people resonate with whatever that persona is, So that's one. The second is your social listening and your focus group discussions help you with that, That's the second thing that you can do when it comes to
Jasrita, could you also elaborate what focus group discussions are for the larger audience? A lot of people get lost on it.
Right. So focus group discussion is, let's take birthing as a segment. And in birthing, if your let's say one of the persona is a migrant who's chosen the city to work, but is not, doesn't belong here, which means wouldn't know the gynecologist or the obstetrician that her mother went to, or, so like a family doctor. Okay. And is a young, upwardly mobile woman, which is there. So you try and through your random sampling of the customers that would have come to you in the last 6 months or 1 year in your OPD, call, let's say 6 to 8 to 10 of them. This is how you try and call them. And then you test your hypothesis, which you have for a persona with them, whether it is demographics, whether it is psychographics, whatever it is, the usage patterns, you test that with that audience, and those are focus group discussions where you have in-depth interviews with, whoever you think is the sort of persona for it, right? So many of these things you can do. And beyond that as well, I think offline we can talk about it beyond that.
The next question is open. I would still want Mahip to take a stab at this first. And then this question is open to everybody on the panel. What ad platforms and strategies are working most during COVID? Any drastic changes observed pre and post COVID? Over to you, Mahip, and then everybody else on the panel.
So, I would specifically say e-commerce because that's what I've been running from past 2 or 3 years. Google and Facebook has been working as predefined. We had seen a drop during COVID, but I think a lot of efficiencies is seen in terms of the changes in algorithm, which is becoming better and better day by day. So if your core objective is, on acquisition, please look at it, running campaigns on Google. I think that's, running well, at an e-commerce level, even Facebook. What you can also do is look at a custom audience and a lookalike audience targeting from your earlier base, because I'm sure a lot of people who would have dropped off will actually come back and try your product if the offerings, have been enhanced. Apart from that, if you ask me, all other things in the affiliate world, try and negotiate for a down funnel matrix, and that would really help you in getting a buck for your money.
Thank you.
Malay, I would like to add something here, like rightly mentioned by Mahip. But the one channel which is really come up with influencers. Earlier it was used only for branding purposes, but now I guess the customers are pretty much loyal to influencers as well, and they play a huge role in if you want to promote a new product, or you want to promote a new service, or you want to do any kind of promotions.
Thanks.
So basically,
Anybody else who wants to take a stab at that?
The same question, right? We are on the same question. I missed out on something. So
we are on the same question.
So OTT actually played a major role during this pandemic, because what I saw so if you look at, I'm just naming Hotstar right now. 7 blockbuster movies which are lined up to being released there. Every second brand wants to get associated with them. So it has actually created an impact in the market in regards with getting eyeballs. And Hotstar, anyways, it's a big platform to get eyeballs. Now, just to give an example, the last movie of Sushant, when it released, Hotstar crashed for a certain period. So that actually says that people are willing to spend time. It may be because because of the situation what happened with Sushant, or because of the last movie of Sushant. But then again, it actually helped brands in garnering massive eyeballs on the OTT platform. So OTT, what I see, actually emerged as a winner. Other than that, yes, earlier Jasrita also pointed out social platforms, analytics platforms. They actually also emerged as winners because they helped marketers to understand their customers in a very, very elaborated way and create their unique personas out of it. So yeah, that's all from my side.
All right. There's another question which I think is open to everybody here. How discount war is going to affect the growth of emerging brands who don't have the kind of budget to throw discounts of that level?
Well, I guess that's more towards the e-commerce guys.
I guess the discounts were a major role player in e-commerce. Specifically, if I talk about Shopclues, the discounting has been one of the major sellers across the platform. But now, I guess the shift is, humongous. The customers are not exactly looking for discounts. You don't really, need to focus on discounting part. As the major focus needs to be on the product and the delivery of the service. Like the promise you made as a brand, you need to deliver on that. The product quality needs to be up to the mark the customer is expecting, and discounts play a good role, but they are not the major game changer which they were, I guess, in the earlier times. So that's a you can say a black gold which this time has given.
Well, I would say I have a different perspective here. I would say that so I'll give you a live example. Well, yesterday night, my mother told me that there is a sale going on Grofer. Why do you have to go to a grocery shop, buy it from Grofers? And Vakul, this is a live scenario what I'm talking about. So I would say, in today's world, if I talk about 3 buying patterns, which is anxiety, conscious, and comfort, I would say 40% is it's actually distributed between anxiety-led buying and cautious-led buying now. If I am getting the same product for a discounted price on Grofers, at any point of time, me, or any one of you would go ahead and buy it, right? So I think discount has actually created, and okay. On the other hand, when it comes to essentials part, I'm not talking about during the pandemic part, but after the pandemic. During pandemic, there were stores who were selling. So if it's 1+1, they actually separated both of them and they were selling it one each to different consumers, and consumers were buying it because it was needed at that point of hour. But now it's a discount led comparison which would start happening, because as I stated earlier, it would be a very, very competitive market going forward, very competitive, because everyone would have, the customer base is the same, everyone would fight for them. So yeah.
Yeah,
But Ankit, where have we seen the end of the pandemic? With 4 million coronavirus cases happening,
I know.
80,000 spikes in a day, and a second wave underway. Who has seen the post of the pandemic? I mean, the post-COVID is a utopia as of now.
Can you
It
guys
is
hear
still
me?
during pandemic.
I think people have become used to
Hello.
the entire situation. That is what he meant.
Yeah. I think there's another question that has come up. I think this is for all of you again. Can anyone shed any light on some new recommendations engine for e-commerce, OTT, etc.? And Anmol Srivastav has asked this question: what would be the recommendations engine of the quality of personalization of Spotify? So something on par in terms of quality is what she seeks. If you have any recommendations for her.
I don't know what Spotify is using, but AWS is working really well for us, so we use AWS for now.
Okay.
Same.
So we've talked about what ad platforms and strategies are working most during COVID. Any drastic changes observed pre and post COVID? I think we've addressed this question.
Yeah, we
This
have
has been a
addressed.
repeat question. Vakul also addressed the buying behavior of customers before and after this pandemic. This was from Gaurav Goswami. Sachin Trivedi, given consumer behavior, buying back changes, do you see in the? So I think we've addressed all of these questions. Now, I think we are done with most questions. This is also an opportunity if you would want to ask your peers in the panel some of the key questions that may be on your mind or something that you can pick their brains on. This is what we could do. And with that, we'll conclude. No questions? All right. Well, thank you for your time, folks. It was lovely hosting you. It was lovely listening to you. I look forward to connecting with each one of you. I think very informative journey for me. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you,
Thank you so
Malay, for
much.
hosting us. Thanks
Thank
a lot.
you.
Thanks a lot, Malay.